Okay, December 10th, Saturday, T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. We have UFC 282, Blachowicz versus Ankalaev. Here we go. Well, let us begin first down in the prelims. But before we get into that, any other fights or fighters that you guys want to spotlight real quick?
I'll say quickly, there are a few debutantes that are worth keeping an eye on that we're not. We've had to cut some fights out here. We've already covered a million things in this episode, and there's some stacked fights. But the opening fight, Cameron Saman, I believe is how you say his name, and Steven Costello are both credentialed prospects who are names to keep an eye on. Whoever wins this fight may be someone interesting. And then I think Omar's going to mention one of the other guys, so I'll skip him. But also Eric Silva, who is not necessarily a young, the prospect doesn't fit him, but he's a quality fighter who is getting his UFC chance now and who has some filthy jits. So he's someone to keep an eye on as well. He's matched up with TJ Brown on this card.
Okay.
I didn't have anybody. Are we not doing him? Oh, damn, no, I missed it. No, yeah, we're not doing him. So, yeah, Raul Rosas Jr. Is on. I could have swore we were going to cover him, but I just noticed in the show notes we don't have him. But Raul Rosas Jr. is on this card, so he's the youngest UFC athlete on the roster, I think, to ever have been on the roster. I think the kid just turned 18 when he made it to the roster. Kid's nasty, though, man. His fight against in the Contender Series, which I would imagine probably had a lot of stress and a lot of nerves behind it, was a pretty damn fantastic performance. So I can only imagine what a big spot this is for him, especially on a pay-per-view right off the bat, fighting a guy like Jay Perrin. And he's not, I mean, he's either the headliner of the prelims or right at the beginning of the main card. I can't really tell. But boy, it's a big spot for this kid, a big moment for him to shine. So definitely keep an eye out for Raul Rosas Jr.
All right. Starting us off first, Billy Quarantillo versus Alexander the Great Ape Hernandez.
The Great Ape? When did he become the Great Ape? He used to just be the Great, right?
Yeah, no.
I think he added ape. Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Okay, Billy Q, 33-year-old out of Tampa, Florida, coming off a loss against Shane Burgos. Hernandez also coming off a loss against Hanato Moicano. Give us your take, Mark.
This is a tough one for me. So the odds, Billy Q is favored. He's minus 165. Alexander Hernandez is plus 135. So first off, Hernandez is a thick fucking guy to be cutting down to 145. I was surprised to see that. So we'll see how that weight cut goes. But he's a guy that has shown before that he can hang with high-level guys and beat high-level guys. Whereas Billy Q, while clearly talented, hasn't really shown us he can get that big win as of yet. So that's kind of an interesting contrast. And, I'm having a hard time picking it. Hernandez is not going to carry any huge size advantage or anything as he moves down. He's going to have 2 inches of reach, but not anything so noteworthy. He's even an inch shorter than Billy Q. So they're basically the same size here. And Hernandez has beaten legit dudes. Like, he beat Trinaldo. He beat Dariush, of course, famously in his debut. He beat OAM, which means something. So he's the one with the resume here, and I feel like he's who I should be picking, but for some reason I'm going the other way. And I guess Quarantillo's favored, so I guess I'm not the only one with this thought process. I don't know if I love the weight cut. Billy Q feels like a guy who kind of has been waiting to break through a little bit. He did have a great scrap with Burgos. Granted, he lost. I kind of could see this being his moment here. I could see maybe he loses the first, but as the fight goes on, the cardio of Hernandez comes into play. Quarantillo's pace comes into play, and he pulls this thing out. So I will say he takes the last 2 rounds and takes a UD for himself.
Omar, go.
I actually agree with that point, especially about the cardio and the trajectory of the fight. I just don't think it'll last all 3 rounds. I think the eventual cardio from Quarantillo is probably going to melt Hernandez by the end of it. So I'm going to go Quarantillo by TKO round 3.
I like the talent and the power of Alexander Hernandez. I have since he got into the UFC, so I'm going to take him by TKO in round number 1.
Wow.
It'll be interesting to see what the man looks like, though, during weigh-ins, because, like Mark said, we haven't seen him at 145, and the kid doesn't really have fat. It's not like when we seen him weigh in at 155 that there's any kind of fucking body fat on him, really. So I don't know what he's cutting.
Okay, big one. Fun one here. In the middleweight division, Chris, the Action Man Curtis, taking on Joaquin New Mansa Buckley. Curtis, the 35-year-old out of Ohio, 29-9 as a pro, 16 knockouts. Goddamn. Coming off of a loss, a unanimous decision loss against Jack Hermanson back in July. Buckley, the 28-year-old from Missouri, 15-5 as a pro, 11 knockouts, also coming off of a loss against Imavov. So both men looking to get back into the win column. Mark, go first.
It's another really good fight. There's a lot of
Great fight.
Quietly solid fights throughout this card. So first off, I thought that if I was considering Buckley here, I'd be considering taking the dog, and that's incorrect. He is minus 155 to beat Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis is plus 130. Didn't see those odds coming. But I kind of feel like this might be the one. Like this might be the right matchup where Joaquin Buckley finally breaks through. And you can tell the UFC wants him to. They keep giving him these chances. Like he kind of got this big jump to Imavov. He lost it, and they were like, well, you're staying right here and fighting Chris Curtis. So, I mean, we know the skill is there. Chris Curtis is no easy task. I've picked against Chris Curtis a lot, as you may remember. And I reached a point where I had to say on the show that even if he fought Ngannou, I was locked into picking him in his next fight because I kept picking against him and he kept winning. He's going to come in there to scrap with Buckley. But to me, Buckley has the better movement. He's equally as much of a finishing threat, if not more. And there's no reach advantage for Curtis, which has been an issue for Buckley in his losses, like his loss to Holland, his loss to Imavov. The reach advantage played a big factor, and he wasn't able to work his same game. These guys are the same size. So it's a coin toss, and I don't know if Buckley is ready to break through, but I really have loved how he looked lately. I loved the way he looked against Zurayev. I thought that was the best version of him we've ever seen. Imavov put it on him, but Imavov is a stud, and Buckley, the way he bounced back in round 3 of that fight, really encouraged me. Imavov had to kind of survive that round 3. So I like what I'm seeing out of Buckley right now, and I will say he wins this fight by UD.
Okay. Omar, give it to us.
I would agree with all those takes, to be really honest. The one thing I would add is the contrast to Joaquin Buckley's recent performances and how good he's looked even through his losses. And I would counter that with how lackluster Curtis looked in specifically his last loss against Jack Hermanson. Definitely left something to be desired. The way he fought Jack Hermanson was just not it. And I can tell you right now, if he fights that same fight against Buckley, he's going to get a heel right to his jaw. Buckley is not the one to fuck around with at all. The athleticism from that kid and his creativity make him a real threat. And I think the only thing that messes him up sometimes is almost being too creative at times and leaving himself exposed to opportunities to get messed up. And people have caught him. So definitely touchable, but Joaquin Buckley, man, is a really good fighter. And Curtis has the tools to beat Buckley, but I think Buckley is just going to be one step ahead of him. I'm going to go with Buckley by unanimous decision. I think he gets all 3 rounds.
Mark, I love your point about the reach and about how Buckley has had a difficulty with the reach, and that's a direct reflection on his recent losses. So I agree. I think that if it's going to be a stand-up war, it's going to be Buckley who comes out victorious. I'm going to say that he's going to hand Chris Curtis his second TKO loss, and I'm going to say he's going to get him out of there in the second round. Okay, moving on. Sticking with the middleweights here, Edmen Shahbazyan taking on Dalcha Lungiambula. There you go.
Yeah.
Both men looking to get back into the win column after 3 straight losses. Shahbazyan, the at one point up-and-comer, like I said, having dropped 3 in a row to Brunson, Hermanson, and Imavov. So 3 very talented Middleweights. Shahbazyan, the 25-year-old out of L.A., California, Lungiambula out of Cape Town, South Africa. He is 35 years old, so a 10-year age difference here. So, Omar, give us your take and your quick pick.
So I was recently reading an interview with Shahbazyan about his recent changes since he's no longer with Glendale Fighting Club. There was a lot of drama apparently with the team. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Glendale Fighting Club is the old Ronda Rousey team with Edmen and the head movement and all that stuff. So it sounds like Shahbazyan is kind of over that team. Whatever drama went down there really left a bad taste in his mouth. It kind of cited very, politically there were differences with the coaches and not seeing eye to eye with a lot of things. So long story short, he basically dipped out of Glendale, and I believe now he's with Extreme Couture and has been training with those guys for a little bit. So I'm interested to see if this makes any difference in his actual performances, any difference in the way he approaches the fights, because there was a time where Shahbazyan was potentially one of the great prospects of that time when he first came into the scene, and he just hasn't really lived up to the hype. Basically, since the pandemic, he hasn't won a fight. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes back. Lungiambula is a tall order to come back from. That man is a scary, scary individual. He has lost 3 in a row, but he has been able to touch a couple of these guys on the way out. And he's definitely a KO threat. Like he definitely is not somebody you want to stand directly in front of when he's throwing some punches. So if Edmen can get his head movement right, pun slightly intended, Lungiambula might have a real tough time that night. But I do think Shahbazyan is the more talented fighter. It's whether he's going to be able to put it all together that night. So I will go with Shahbazyan by unanimous decision.
So Edmen's a big favorite. He's minus 300. Dalcha is plus 240. I get that. I think that the UFC went pretty safe here to try to get Shahbazyan a win. The man who knocked out Brad Tavares should absolutely not lose to Dalcha Lungiambula. And if he does, the whole Edmen Shahbazyan thing may be over as soon as it began. Not to say Lungiambula is a bum, because as Omar said, he's not. He's a powerful, dangerous man. But he has not done anything to show that he's on a level that Edmen Shahbazyan is perceived to be on. Supposedly, Edmen spent his whole camp training with Magomed Ankalaev as well, which can only help. I got to assume that was a tough and focused camp. I will trust him to get back on the winning side of the ledger. He's at a 2-inch reach disadvantage, but he's 6 inches taller. And I think that'll be a factor for him with his kicks. I think he could look to grapple, which has shown to be a flaw in Dalcha's game before. And I will say Shahbazyan gets this done on the ground. I could see it either way. I could even see like a spaced out club and sub scenario. Like he hurts him with something, but Dalcha's in it and he kind of like follows them and they eventually get to the mat and then a sub happens like a bit later. Something like that. So I'll say round 2 sub.
I think this is Shahbazyan's last hurrah. If he loses, then it's like I'm hopping off the Shahbazyan train permanently. That being said, I'm going to pick him to get the win here. I think he's going to outshine Lungiambula on the feet, and he's going to TKO him. I'm going to say he's going to TKO him in round number 2. Maybe 3. No, I'm going to say stick with 2. Okay. A heavyweight bout between Jairzinho, Rozenstruik, and Chris Daukaus was originally scheduled for UFC Fight Night Darren versus Jan, but for some reason, for unknown reasons, it was moved to this pay-per-view. So here we go. Heavyweights. Jairzinho, Biggie Boy Rozenstruik out of Suriname, coming off of back-to-back losses against Curtis Blades and Alexander Volkov. He's 12-4 as a pro with 11 knockouts. Daukaus from Philly, 12-5 as a pro with 11 knockouts. Also coming off of back-to-back losses at the hands of Derek Lewis and also Curtis Blades. Omar, why don't you take this one first? Give us your take and your quick pick.
So this fight, I kind of hate for Chris Daukaus, to be honest. I'm not a huge Chris Daukaus fan. I'm not generally standing for him. but I'm also not the type of person to encourage someone to their death. So this seems like that's kind of what we're trying to do to Chris Daukaus here. He's dropped a couple in his last fights. Jairzinho has been less than consistent, but Chris Daukaus is the type of person who, from his most recent fights, seems to have a problem not being a heavy bag for people. And if you're doing that against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, you are bound to get launched to the other side of the octagon. Unless Chris Daukaus has done something significant to change the vulnerability that he seems to have in getting hit in the face, Jairzinho Rozenstruik is going to lay this kid the fuck out. So I'm going to go with Rozenstruik, round 1, KO.
Mark.
Okay, so Rozenstruik is favored. He's minus 175. Chris Daukaus is plus 145. So
that's close.
Yeah, it's closer than I thought it would be, to be honest. And I agree with you. This is kind of another one of these examples. Like, you just had Daukaus get smoked by Derek Lewis, then he gets knocked out by Curtis Blades. Like, if you want him to be anything, why not go a little down the ladder and see if he gets a win? Like, you're just asking for him to get knocked out 3 consecutive fights, which kind of kills anything that is Chris Daukaus. And that's what I think is going to happen. I mean, the guy has shown some skills with his hands, but he just doesn't strike me as a guy who should be fighting top heavyweights. I don't know what it is. He always feels small to me in there. I don't know if it's because he's like kind of overweight and his actual frame is not as big as these other guys' frames.
Agree.
But I just don't see him succeeding too much in hitting Rozenstruik and not being hit. Rozenstruik is a really high-level heavyweight kickboxer, and I don't trust Daukaus' chin to hold up when a big shot lands. I don't trust him to get Rozenstruik out of there before that happens, and I will say Daukaus gets put down again. So I'll go Rozenstruik round 2 knockout.
Completely agree. Rozenstruik is going to touch him. It's going to be a round 1 knockout. Sorry, Daukaus. Love you, buddy. Go Eagles. Psych. Let's move on. We have quite a few more fights to go, and I'm dying. Okay, featherweight action. This one is going to be fucking nuts. Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell taking on Ilia El Matador Topuria. Bryce Mitchell, out of Arkansas, 28 years old, undefeated, 15-0. Out of his 15 victories, 9 submissions. No knockouts, but 9 submissions. Coming off of a unanimous decision over Edson Barboza. Topuria, on the other side, also undefeated. One of those rare times in the sport where we get to say someone's O has got to go. Topuria, the 25-year-old, fighting out of Spain. Of his 12 victories, 4 knockouts, 7 submissions, totaling about a 90% finish rate, gentlemen. Only 1 fight has gone to the distance. Most recently, taking Jai Herbert's soul in the second round of that fight. Mark, let's start with you, bud. Give us your take on how
I was really hoping it didn't start with me, so I could see if
lose the O.
I wanted to see if Omar said anything smart that made me able to make a decision here. I would like to opt out of picking this fight. They're both so good, and I love both of their games. I think they're super interesting contenders in this division. The odds are tight. Topuria is actually the favorite. He is minus 145. Bryce Mitchell is plus 115. Bryce Mitchell is so damn good at what he does. But Ilia Topuria is an absolute freak. The scrambling ability that he has, the strength and the power and the actual grappling skill along with it. Like, he is a very skilled grappler in his own right. Plus the KO power is on his side. Like, you add all that up, it kind of feels like a recipe of how to beat Bryce Mitchell. So I love Bryce. If this was 5 rounds, first of all, I fucking wish this was 5 rounds. I think I'd consider Bryce more because I think the cardio and the relentlessness would come into play a bit more. They're similar size. Bryce is 3 inches taller, but the reach is the same. It's hard. I mean, it's 2 undefeated fighters, which is always amazing because you're kind of yet to learn what the recipe is to beat either guy. But I just can't shake the feeling that Topuria kind of has it. He has kind of the exact skill set you need to beat Bryce Mitchell. Now, first off, we got to see how the weight cut goes. Topuria moved up to lightweight because he was struggling so much to cut to featherweight. Now he is suddenly back, so we'll see how the weight cut goes. But assuming it goes well, as great as Bryce Mitchell has looked, I'm just pulling up his record right now so I quote this correctly. This is the toughest matchup he's had stylistically by a country mile. Like in the UFC, he beat Tyler Diamond, Bobby Moffitt, Matt Sales, Charles Rosa. We'll skip all 4 of those guys. Of course he beat those guys. Topuria would annihilate those guys too. Then he beat Andre Feely, who he can grapple and he's a little scrambly, but he's not any powerful kind of guy who can defend the wrestling. And then he beat Edson Barbosa, who obviously is super dangerous on the feet, but he can be a sitting duck at times for the wrestling also. So I don't think we've seen Bryce's game work against someone like an Ilia Topuria. And as much as I love Bryce, I think this is a really difficult matchup. And I will say Topuria wins it 29-28 UD.
Omar.
Yeah, I got to say, this one's not really that difficult for me. I have no problems picking this fight. I think Ilia Topuria is the significantly better fighter of the two. I say that for a couple different reasons. I think what Bryce Mitchell brings to the table, the 2 biggest attributes he brings to the table, is his chain wrestling and his cardio. I think when you put both of those together, it's a real recipe for people not being able to get or keep Bryce Mitchell off of them. And then he does what he does on the ground, rolls around, eventually more than likely ends up getting some kind of either decision or submission based on control and based on his heavy grappling. His striking is not particularly amazing, but just like Colby Covington and a lot of other guys who are very good chain wrestlers, very good with the cardio, like significantly good with the cardio, the striking becomes a tool to use in combination with the grappling. When you put all that together, Bryce Mitchell becomes a real pain in the ass to deal with because he's coming at you consistently and from all levels. Ilia Topuria is the kind of guy that I think does a lot of the same thing and is better at it. Not to mention, if you take them skill for skill, and let's say that they're even, let's say that they are complementary to one another, as far as their level is concerned, and they're able to their ability to execute their game plans. At that point, then I'm just looking to see who the hell is stronger, who is physically more capable of getting those things off on each other. And it just seems like Ilia Topuria is going to take that cake too. So there's a lot of things that are working against Bryce Mitchell. I have a very hard time seeing a real path to victory for Bryce Mitchell that doesn't involve catching Ilia Topuria in something opportunistic or taking some kind of crazy ass beating in the meantime. So I'm going to go with Ilia Topuria. I'll give Bryce Mitchell the benefit of the doubt that he won't allow himself to get finished, but I think Bryce Mitchell gets beat on for 3 rounds. So I'm going to go with Ilia Topuria, unanimous decision, 30-27.
And we are unanimous because
Wow.
I am also taking Topuria. I think, to Mark's point, Topuria has a great skill set to defeat Bryce Mitchell. Not only that, I'm going to make a boldish pick, and I'm going to say that he hands Bryce Mitchell not only his first loss, but his first knockout loss. And I just have a feeling that the first round is not going to go as Bryce Mitchell hopes it was going to go, and Topuria is going to defend a lot of takedowns pretty well. Maybe Mitchell will grapple for his life and get him down halfway through the first. But then I think in the second round, I just have a feeling Topuria is going to light him up. And I'm going to say he's going to knock him out in the second round.
The underestimation of Bryce Mitchell is kind of making me wish I picked Bryce Mitchell. I really do rate his game. But yeah, I certainly think he's going to lose round 1. If he wins this fight, it's somehow dragging him down in the second and then kind of saps his energy and wins the third too, something like that. But yeah, Topuria's fucking good, man. And now this is his time. He's kind of been waiting for a fight like this where he can actually announce himself. And this may be the one.
It's from a technique perspective, Bryce Mitchell reminds me a lot of Colby Covington. There's a lot of similarities in their game and their approach. And in a lot of instances, I'd be picking Colby Covington, to win a lot of fights just the same way, to be honest, I'd be picking Bryce Mitchell to win a lot of those fights as well. But when you got a guy that's game is very similar and his physical attributes are just more impressive, i.e. a Kamaru Usman, your man's is going to pick the physically more imposing human being with the similar skill set every time.
Fair.
Okay, we have 4 more fights.
We're getting there.
Okay.
Going
back
body's
into the
starting to
middle.
hurt due to lack of
It's starting
sleep.
to hurt real bad. Let's quick pick these fucking dudes.
Yeah, right.
Darren Till versus Dricus du Plessis. Till's from England, du Plessis from South Africa. Mark, go make it big.
Oh, wow. Mike is giving up. Come on.
I'm dying. I have an event tomorrow.
We're here already, man. We got to finish this thing for the people. Dricus minus 190 as the favorite. Darren Till plus 160. I am going to do it again. One more time. The very last time that I trust Darren Till. Once
Fuck
again.
We're going to go to the loony bin together. It's all good. We'll go to the loony bin together.
The matchup that is in front of Darren Till on paper should be a matchup that he wins. Dricus is very good. He's very good. I like Dricus a lot. He has a win over Roberto Soldic, who we were talking about earlier.
That's right.
The way
I noted that too.
The way that he strikes, he should not be able to beat Darren Till. Like, he just shouldn't. He brawls, he crashes in, he wings punches at times, he kind of short arms punches at times. He's a bit sloppy, and even his grappling, which is also effective, is also a bit sloppy. Like, he's very much a bulldozer. That's kind of his style. He just keeps coming at you. You can't keep him off you, and then even if he's eating punches to his face, all of a sudden he starts landing them on your face, and the fight kind of changes, or he takes you down or whatever. But a guy with a style like that should not beat someone with the technique of Darren fucking Till. So the issue is that Dricus is tough as hell. So if Till's going to win this fight, I think he's got to do it for all 15 minutes. Because I don't think he's going to finish him. I mean, I guess he could if he catches him clean, but Dricus just eats shots like a fucking animal. So I think Till would have to win it on the cards, which is a lot of time for Dricus to possibly get him down, and we all know what can happen to Darren Till if he gets down. But I'm going to say he can do it. I'm going to say Darren Till, UD, the technique shines. Maybe it shines so much that he does even catch him, which would be huge. So I'll go Darren Till, UD. So with that said, expect him to get ragdolled in super disappointing fashion.
So I am also going to go with the non-logical pick in Darren Till. My reasoning is a bit more... optimistic, I guess, really. The man has been fighting and training with the Swedish team and with Hamzat. If your ass is not picking anything up from those savages that you can't beat Dricus du Plessis, then I don't need to be picking you no more, because you're just a phony. Just a phony. So I would hope that all the work that he's been putting in there, all the ass beatings that we've seen him be taking in that gym, all the rounds of wrestling and cardio and weightlifting, all of the work, all the injuries that he's still putting his ass through training, I would hope that there were gains involved and not just pure pain and utter work for no result. So I have to believe in Darren Till. I have to believe that there was some sort of plus in him in the last year. I'm going to go Darren Till by unanimous decision. it's very possible Duplessis knocks him the fuck out, though.
Yeah, I'm going with Duplessis here. I feel like Till has just he's not the juggernaut he was at welterweight. I don't think he has looked great since he has entered the middleweight fray. He beat Gastelum, which is a nice name, but it was a split.
So he barely beat
competitive
Gastelum.
Fight. And even his last 2 fights at welterweight didn't go his way. You know, he got beat up bad by Woodley, and he got knocked the fuck out by Masvidal at one. And that was at 170 as well.
That was Woodley's last win, right? Like during his
that
slide that he had.
Woodley looked really good against Till.
That's accurate.
Which is what was concerning because he looked like shit against everyone else, but he looked nasty against Till. And so it's sort of like, so who was really looking like what in that fight?
There's a bit of irony with the nicknames of this fight because Till obviously is the gorilla, but I think of Duplessis more as the gorilla. Mark, what did you call him? Like the pile driver or the plow?
I said a bulldozer.
Bulldozer. That's a great nickname for him too. I
will say Duplessis' nickname also I feel like works better for Darren. Still knocks. Darren still knocks too.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Just works better.
I think he's going to beat Till up for 3 rounds to a clear unanimous decision. And that's the pick. Let's move on because I'm dying inside. In the welterweight division, a bout between the former UFC welterweight champion Robbie Lawler and Santiago Ponzinibbio was expected to take place at this event. The pairing was previously scheduled to meet at UFC 245 back in 2019, but Pons withdrew due to a staph infection. Let's see. And then this week, this bout almost fell through. Lawler had to withdraw due to, this time, an undisclosed injury. And Alex Morono, the Great White, stepped in at a catch weight of 180 pounds. So Morono, 32-year-old out of Houston, Texas, 22-7, won no contest, riding a 4-fight win streak coming into this fight. Ponzinibbio, the Argentine dagger, 36 years old, 28-6 as a pro with 15 knockouts, 6 subs, only 7 fights going the distance in which he won. He is looking to get back into the win column with back-to-back losses coming into this weekend against Jeff Neal and Michel Pereira. Omar, first of all, what was so funny?
I'm trying to figure out if Alex Morono really thought his nickname through, because ending his nickname the Great White doesn't really have the same ring as I think he thinks it does, right? The Great White Shark, something, the Great White something, but the Great White.
I think it's his name because he's so pale. Like I think someone gave him the name at one point.
I think it's the play on words
related to that. Yeah,
the Great White. Yeah, doesn't roll off the tongue.
Like,
as sexy as the Argentine dagger. I mean, that's
how Argentinian people sound, because I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either. It's not. That's not it at all. But that is a fantastic nickname. I mean, that's quality. That's primo right there. Okay, Alex Morono is in a big spot right here. This is a huge fight for Alex Morono. Obviously, he's taking it on very short notice. I think it's like a week, maybe even less at this point. I don't remember exactly when Lawler pulled out. It might have been yesterday. Was it yesterday?
I feel like it was.
So it's a big spot for him, man. And Ponzinibbio, if we're being really honest, has everything to lose at this point. Ponzinibbio has not been doing great lately. He's dropped his last 2 very tough fights that he's been in, but he has not gotten the nod, and he has looked not quite like himself, like the earlier versions of Pons that we have been used to seeing dominate. The fights have been a lot more competitive and even more so less dominant, a lot less dominant from the Ponzinibbio side. So there is a potential for Morono to really take this home and really exploit the opportunities that Ponzinibbio has been presenting lately in his fights. with all that being said, man, I struggle to choose against Ponzinibbio right now. I want to believe that he could pull this off. I mean, if he can't beat Alex Morono, and Alex Morono is a great fighter, he's very good, but we keep talking about there's levels to these things, and I just think Ponzinibbio has been on a different level than Morono has been. But maybe that's not the case anymore. I'm going to ride with Ponzinibbio on this one. This might be the last time, depending on how this performance goes, but I will go Ponzinibbio, unanimous decision.
Okay, Mark.
Pons is favored. He's minus 180. Morono is plus 155. We lost a pretty fun fight in Ponzinibbio and Lawler. I did like that fight, but props to the boy Alex Morono for saving this thing, because this is still pretty interesting in its own right. And he's no easy opponent, especially on short notice, to be honest, because he can do everything. He fights calm, and he fights smart. So that's kind of a tricky guy to game plan for on very short notice like this, because you don't exactly know what he may employ in there and how you want to attack it. So he's on a great run right now. He's won 4 straight. He gets a shot to break through here, kind of out of nowhere. Unfortunately for him, it's on short notice, but I'm sure he's jumping at it. But I'm going to make the same point as Omar. Despite the fact that Pons has looked maybe slightly worse than his prime self as of late, I still think there's levels to the game. And Morono's run has been him beating an older Cerrone, David Zawada, Mickey Gall, Matt Semmelsberger. And Pons, while losing, has had back-to-back split decision losses to Jeff Neal and Michel Pereira, who are like top-of-the-line welterweights right now, especially Neal. So if he can hang that close with those guys, I got to trust him here to get this done. I will trust his boxing. I'll trust his power, his grit, and I think he can make sure he gets at least 2 of these rounds. So give me Pons UD.
I like Ponzinibbio as well. I think he overall should be, I don't know, though. I'm not going to say that he's the more talented guy. I mean, I don't want to disrespect Morono. Morono's an easily overlooked guy. He's an easily overlooked welterweight because he's not flashy. He's a conservative fighter. He's a safe fighter. He doesn't carry huge power. He's not he doesn't do slick, crazy jiu-jitsu. He's good just about everywhere. And his record reflects that. 6 knockouts, 6 submissions, 9 decisions. But yeah, I just feel like Ponzinibbio should have some kind of talent edge, some kind of power edge. But I think this is going to be a close fight. I think this has close fight and has split decision written all over it. So I'm going to take Ponzinibbio by split.
I think one of the main differences, too, is Morono is a hard worker. Morono is the type of kid who will bite down in his mouthpiece, come forward, and he will work. He will push the pace. And Ponzinibbio is definitely much more of a technical fighter. So Ponzinibbio, I think, relies a lot on his range, on his movement, on his ability to plant his feet when he's striking. There's a lot, I think, of technicalities that Ponzinibbio looks for in a fight, where Morono will literally just walk forward and throw shots and eat shit and move forward. And sometimes that messes with a lot of technical fighters. So it'll be interesting to see kind of whose skill set comes out on top here, because it's, Morono, like we said, is maybe not at Ponzinibbio's level. That doesn't mean Morono can't win.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, co-main time in the lightweight division. The return of Paddy the Baddy Pimblett taking on Jared Flash Gordon. Paddy the Baddy, of course, the 27-year-old out of Liverpool, England, 19-3 as a pro, 6 knockouts, 9 subs, riding a 5-fight win streak coming into this weekend. He is undefeated in the UFC, 3-0 in the UFC. Jared Gordon, out of Queens, New York, 34 years old, 19-5 as a pro, 6 knockouts, 2 subs, 11 decisions, coming off of a win against Leandro Santos. Omar, sticking with you here, give us your take and your pick of Gordon versus Paddy the Baddy.
I think it's safe to say that Jared Gordon at this point is the highest level fight that Paddy Pimblett has fought up until this point, especially in his UFC career. He's had some fights in the past with guys that we've seen in the UFC, but I think we're at a different point now. The rise of Paddy Pimblett has been a slow and steady one, but I think this person, Jared Gordon, I think has a resume with wins and with quality quality wins and quality losses, that it will really give us a proper gauge as to where Paddy Pimblett is in this division and frankly, in his skills. I believe in Paddy Pimblett. I know some of us may have varied on that opinion. Some of us may have had stronger thoughts as to whether Paddy would be in the top 15 or top 10 somewhere down the line than others. But I like Paddy, man. There's nothing about the way he fights that has turned me off. I think he's a very aggressive fighter. His length, his use of length and his striking, I think is fantastic. He's not the most creative when it comes to combos. He's not the most active when it comes to stringing a lot of shots together. But he uses his length to keep his reach. And when necessary, he transitions to the ground, whether it's somebody trying to crash in to close that reach and he immediately ducks under and goes for a takedown of some kind, or he catches a kick or catches a teep, whatever the case is, to then go down to the ground. He has opportunities within his striking that he looks to move down to the ground and work the game that he has there. I think Jared Gordon is the type of guy that will play with Paddy Pimblett, that will give Paddy what he wants in terms of positions on the ground and wanting to go down to the ground and play that whole game. I think Jared believes in his ground game enough to do so. I just think that Paddy Pimblett, when we talk about the mental game, I think Paddy's on a different level right now. I think Paddy is very similar to that kind of Conor McGregor confidence, at least in his mind, that this is his time, this is his era, this is the work that he's put in, and these are the fruits of his labor, and he just needs to go out there and perform the way he knows he can. And I fully believe that he has the ability to do that. Jared Gordon, I think, is the one who needs to show up in this fight if he wants to prove something, to prove that he's just not a guy to get run over in the UFC. Jared Gordon has shown in his losses, though, that there are opportunities on the ground to finish him. And I think those are the type of things that Paddy needs to exploit. I'm going to go with Paddy Pimblett, second round submission.
Okay, Mark.
Like it. So I'll respond quickly first to the Paddy comments that are obviously directed at me. I have always liked Paddy, and I was pumped when he came to the UFC, and I've always thought that he would be like a top 20, 25-ish guy. If we go back, I think I said a similar thing. I just never thought he'd be in the title mix, and then I threw out the bold take of that he wouldn't even be ranked, which I still think may be an accurate take. I don't think I've seen anything yet that makes me say, okay, he probably is going to be a ranked fighter. I don't think – I may change my mind, of course, as he keeps winning, but I'm still in my same place. I think – and for reference, Jared Gordon is my 29th ranked lightweight. So, like, we're here right now. This is the one where if Paddy wins, he kind of ends up right around where I thought he'd end up. He's in the mix. You know, he's 47 in my rankings right now because he hasn't proven anything as of yet. You know, he's fought 3 kind of randos. I mean, Levitt's a little bit not a rando, but 3 kind of randos. So this is the one. This is where Paddy Pimblett kind of enters the mix of fighting people who are very relevant. So we will see. He is a big favorite. He's minus 260. Jared Gordon is plus 200. I have never believed in the game of Jared Gordon. So to me, this is not a hard one. I think I've rarely picked Jared Gordon on this show. He did impress me in his last fight. Was it his last fight? Yeah, against Santos. I liked how he looked in that fight. But I just think he doesn't have the game to stop what Paddy does. I'm not picking Paddy's role to stop here by any means. I think he's fast enough and athletic enough to give Gordon some issues on the feet. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage, which helps. I think that if Gordon plays on the outside, he's going to get picked apart by Paddy. As much as Paddy's striking technique is not the most clean thing you've ever seen in your life, he can be a dangerous striker, and with a 5-inch reach advantage, he will be. And if Gordon closes that gap and kind of tries to strike in close, I think he's in danger of being wrapped up by Paddy and Paddy taking it back or throwing a leg over him in some fashion and doing what Paddy does. If Gordon tries to grapple, which I agree, I think Gordon will be confident there. I like Paddy's grappling there too. Gordon's skilled down there, but I just think that Paddy is too good of a scrambler and too opportunistic that he's just going to find something if this spends time on the ground. So I think it's a good matchup for Paddy Pimblett. And I think he is the more dangerous finisher, and I think he will finish it. So give me Paddy. I'll say he does something slick to get it back and gets a rear naked choke in round 2.
I am a bit of a Jared Gordon fan. That being said, I think Paddy has too many attributes in his favor. I think he's 7 years younger, taller, longer, faster, probably has more power in his hands. I think he's more explosive. I would not be totally surprised, though, if Jared Gordon gave him a real run for his money. Jared Gordon is competent just about everywhere. He's very competent where Paddy is strongest, which is on the ground. So that could be interesting. But Paddy also just brings in too much energy, man. Too much energy. So I'm going to keep rolling with Paddy as well. I'm going to say Paddy's going to get it done by decision this time, by UD.
Mike is so tired that he's officially started whispering. He's trying to slowly put himself to sleep.
Mark, how tall is Jared Gordon? Because they have him listed as 5'9" on SureDog, and they have Paddy at 5'10". And that doesn't seem right to me.
I don't feel like Jared Gordon's very tall. That's kind of just about what I thought.
But I feel like Paddy's taller, like a good amount taller,
more
not
than
an
an
inch.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I looked up was 5'9" and 5'10" as well. Like I said, the reach was 5 inches, but those are the heights that I saw.
I can't wait to see that stare down because I have a feeling they're.
I'm looking at them both in just if you type it in Google and you look at every link, and every link says 5'10" for Paddy, 5'9" for Gordon.
Okay.
Maybe they are closer once they actually stand next to each other, but I just feel like Paddy's chin is going to be where Jared Gordon's eyes are, but maybe I'm wrong.
Could be another one of those. We've seen some lately. We will see.
If they are this wrong, we need to fucking fire these people who are using these tape measures or whatever's happening here because they're failing really horribly.
Do you know I already really get annoyed sometimes about the way reach is calculated? Not to go off on a tangent, I don't understand how we haven't addressed this yet. Why is the width of a chest part of reach? I want to know how long dudes' arms are. I don't care if one guy's has 5 more inches of chest. So they say, oh, he has 5 more inches of reach, but their arms are the same size. Yeah. I don't know why we do that.
What do you want to measure from, the pit?
Yes, that's
they
what PFL does. PFL does pit to tip.
Pit to tip.
They also
shoulder,
do the
shoulder to tip. I forget what they do.
Yeah, the regular one is just the arm span, basically. So from tip to tip all the way across.
That's what UFC does. Yeah.
Right.
Tip to tip.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, I don't like it. Anyway, let's get back to it.
Okay, we've made it to the main event of UFC 282. 282?
Yep.
Yeah, 282.
282.
My bad.
282.
For the vacant UFC Light Heavyweight Championship, Jan Blachowicz taking on Magomed Ankalaev. So just a quick recap here. The current champ, Yuri Prochazka, was originally expected to rematch with Glover Teixeira. They fought back at UFC 275 back in June. Prochazka winning that fight. However, for this rematch, Prochazka pulled out due to a terrible shoulder injury that was apparently so bad that it would require surgery and at least a 6-month rehab period. So he vacated the title, and Teixeira subsequently refused a replacement opponent or a replacement fight against Ankalaev. Therefore, what am I trying to say? Ankalaev and Blachowicz stepped in as the new main event and a vacant title for the light heavyweight championship. So Blachowicz, 39 years old, out of Poland. He is 29-9. 9 knockouts, 9 subs, 11 decisions, coming off of a TKO victory against Alexander Rakic, in which Rakic blew out his knee, of course, in round number 3. And Ankalaev, the 30-year-old out of Dagestan, Russia, He is 17-1. His only loss coming, it was his first fight in the UFC, came at the hands of Paul Craig, who finished him by a triangle choke. He has been undefeated since, and his most recent victory came against Anthony Lionheart-Smith by TKO back in July of this year. Omar, start us off. Give us your take, and then your pick.
So the fight is very interesting because you have somebody in Ankalaev who essentially hasn't lost. The fight against Paul Craig, while he did lose, he was beating the shit out of Paul Craig up until the very end when Paul Craig did his Paul Craig thing and got him caught. So I rank Ankalaev a pretty big deal and a real big problem in that division. Jan Blachowicz has shown that he can obviously hang with the elite, but he's also shown that he could fall as well. Ankalaev seems to be a little bit sharper everywhere. He seems to be very good everywhere. A lot of times when you think of Dagestani, you think of heavy wrestling, you think of good wrestling, significant elite wrestling. But Ankalaev is good everywhere. Not only is his wrestling good, but his striking is significantly good. And personally, I think it's better than Jan's striking is. I just think Magomed is better everywhere. I feel bad for Jan because at 39 years old, I don't know how many more opportunities Jan's going to have to try to capture gold or even continue in MMA, frankly. But I think that Magomed Ankalaev is a tall order. He's a prospect that we've seen coming for a long time, and I think it was just a matter of time before he got this opportunity. And I can't imagine that any of us thought that once Ankalaev got this opportunity, he wouldn't be able to capitalize on it. So I'm going to go with Ankalaev. I actually think he stops Jan. I'm going to go with KO round 2.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, that was well said in terms of the rise of Ankalaev. Like, I feel like it's been a while where it's been like, he's coming. Like, next step. We know he's going to get to the next step. Here's the next one. We know he's going to get to that. Like we knew this day was coming. We knew he'd be in a title fight. He is a pretty big favorite. He's minus 275. Jan, the former champ, is plus 215.
Wow.
I do think that Jan can cause Magomed some issues on the feet. He does have a 3-inch reach advantage there too. I just think he can provide some type of looks and power shots that Magomed has not had to necessarily deal with so far. I know you see guys like Thiago Santos on the resume, but it's kind of the shell of Thiago Santos. I think Jan is a different level of threat standing across from Magomed that he's going to have to kind of adapt to. But it sounds like such a silly commentary, but Magomed Ankalaev is just a really difficult guy to beat in a fight. Like, he's made out of rocks. He fights so smart and so patient and refuses to deviate from a game plan. He doesn't do anything dumb in there. He doesn't have holes. He's a great wrestler. He's a great striker. He doesn't give you opportunities. It's just a really hard puzzle to solve. He'll fight from range. I think he'll keep himself safe as much as he can. He'll look for openings in the wrestling if he feels that he needs to or that it's there. And, I mean, you would think he forgot his wrestling in the Santos fight, but I guess he didn't need it. But I got to think he employs it here. You know, we got a title on the line. I think maybe against Santos he was trying to make sure he looked good so he can get an opportunity. Like, he's here now. I don't think he fucks around. I think he knows the wrestling is potentially his easiest path to victory. So I do think we see it. I think Jan could have his moments. He absolutely could. I think he'll keep it competitive, but I just think it's Magomed's time right now, and I could see the fight slipping away from Jan even as it goes on. I will say Magomed Ankalaev, round 4 TKO with ground and pound.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, we're unanimous. I think this is a fight as awesome as Blachowicz is, and as much of a sort of a late career surprise he was for so many. This is Ankalaev's time, and I think he's just gonna kind of pull away as the fight goes on, and he's just gonna be better, and he should be better everywhere. To me, the one area that he just has to be careful, of course, is Blachowicz's power. But I think he's just so good. He's so good defensively. I think he will stay away from Blachowicz's power. And I see a clear 5-round pulling away. It becomes a little bit more dominant in the later rounds, and Ankalaev wins a clear UD and now the UFC light heavyweight champion. And he will be, I don't know what will be next for him. Maybe he waits for Prochazka to come back from his shoulder. Maybe Prochazka's out so long that he's going to defend it at some point. But
yeah, I think it'd probably be Glover. I think whoever wins this probably fights Glover.
Glover? Okay, yeah. Probably right.